Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my monologues. Today, we're looking at the energy companies again. Now, you may remember in my last video that I did, let's have a look at it here. You may or may not have seen it. Apparently, it's possible to claim back payments. And it sounds too good to be true, but according to a little-known piece of legislation, we could claim back payments that have been wrongfully asked for. And in that video, we looked at the way that you could do that. We are in a situation, are we not, ladies and gentlemen, in which we've had the Labour Party, the lovely, nice, kind, benevolent, wonderful, philanthropic Labour Party decide to stop the winter payments for our old age pensioners, probably, the most vulnerable, who can't run around and keep warm, who are old and frail and need the winter payments to keep warm. We know why they're doing that, and we know that there is a depopulation agenda at work, and we can see what's going on. So if we can make those winter payments cheaper, those energy companies, and find out whether they're acting lawfully or not, then hopefully this can help people, and that's what we need to do, because it does seem as if the government are not so much here to help people, but more to hinder them. So we were looking at that now. I've been shared an email from somebody else. I've taken out the names, and I thought I would read it to you to see if this resonates with you. So let's have a look at that. So here we go. So the email runs like this. It's my understanding the energy companies just charge for the meter. National Grid supplies up to the main fuse holder, and energy companies from the meter in the house into the home, in other words, to your sockets. But here's the thing. My experience has been thus. Let's get this on the screen. My spat with EDF Energy has been that I wanted them to prove I owed the statement that they were providing me with by proving that I had a contract with them. They couldn't. I asked them to take me to court for a CCJ. They wouldn't. They eventually stated that they had an assumed contract that I was bound to. An assumed contract? That's very interesting, is it not? So the emailer goes on. I placed liens on all the directors, asking them to prove that assumed contracts were lawful instruments. The liens were unrebutted. They just removed the main fuse holder, leaving 3 wires outside my fuse box, one of them being live. Apparently, I am a naughty slave. Now, just for one moment, let's just pause there. Surely that is not legal, certainly not lawful, to take away the fuse box and just leave live wires sticking out. I hope that they bound them up with some sort of tape so they were protective. But that does sound a bit outrageous. Anyway, let's continue. I since discovered that there's a Telegram group called Free Energy for All, headed by a woman called Kales. Well, I've had Kales on the show, as you may remember. All her members do not pay for electricity, and in fact they have 3 electricians changing meters on behalf of those members. I cannot work out how Telegram works, so I gave up. Should you wish to investigate, I am 100% sure the energy companies are double dipping. Kales states that energy is already paid for. Now, we've had her on the show, and some people do dispute some of the things that she says. I can't vouch for it because I haven't done it, but they do seem to be very successful in what they're doing, and they are helping people. And as she says there, it is on the Telegram group. If you look for it, I believe it is Free Energy for All if you have that. So assumed contract, is that a valid thing? So the reason I'm interested in that is if we're all on these contracts. Now, contracts seem to come and they update them whenever they like, and they say, oh, there's some changes in them, and we just assume that that's right. So I thought it was sensible to go and have a look at what a contract really is and what you need, the parts, if you like, of a contract. And it so happens that somebody else shared me a website which is fascinating in and of itself. It seems to be a very sovereign-based website, and you may want to go and have a look at it anyway and explore all of that. So I'm quite happy to promote the website. And I've had a look at it myself, and it looks great. So let's have a little look at that. It's called The Great Work, and it's time to stop living in an illusion, rid yourself of the shackles that bound you, and head towards the light of truth and freedom. So here we are, parts of a contract, and these are the bits that we should bear in mind. I won't read the whole thing in its total. You can go and have a look at that yourselves, but let's just have a look at some of the basic parts of a contract. So the parties competent to contract, these are the people who obviously you and maybe the energy company that we were referring to, but it would be anybody that you're having a contract with, possibly even the council. The parties to a contract should be competent, being of the age of consent, of sound mind, not disqualified from contracting by any law to which he or she is subject. A flaw in capacity may be due to minority, i.e. being too young, lunacy, idiocy, drunkenness, or any dissimilary of kind. The parties should be of the same kind. In other words, they should be either legal fiction to legal fiction, i.e. corporate people to corporate people, or living men and women to one another, allowing more than two parties, but never a mixture of these kinds, which means that you can't have a corporation contracting with a living man or woman, which is why you have the all caps name, because they've turned you into a corporation if you consent to be the all caps name that is there generated from your birth certificate. You should be free and genuine consent. Here we go. The consent of the parties to the agreement must be free and genuine. The consent of the parties should not be obtained by misrepresentation, fraud, undue influence, coercion, or mistake. If the consent is obtained by any of these means, then the contract is not valid or legally or even lawfully enforceable. Now, I would argue that we are all contracted unlawfully on a number of these things, that we didn't sign for a number of things, and as it said in the email we just read, they have assumed a contract. But let's just go a little bit further, not that screen, there we go. Full disclosure, very important that we have full disclosure when you're signing a contract, and all this tiny small print that you can't read, that's outrageous. So when negotiating a contract, full disclosure is the step of providing all material information or telling the whole truth about any matter which may influence the decision-making of the other party or parties before they decide to enter into a contract. And if any party fails to make full disclosure, the contract is null and void. And here we have the other parts of the contract, as you can see there. Valuable consideration. Consideration is something of value possessed by the parties that is brought to the contract table. This is something of value that is bargained for and given in exchange for a promise or a performance. Certainty of terms. The terms and conditions of the contract must be fully disclosed and agreed upon and must be certain and fixed. Any subsequent variation of the terms must be agreed. Now, as I said, we often see, do we not, that terms and agreements are often saying, we've updated our terms and agreements on a contract. Well, that is unlawful. The only thing that I can imagine that goes on is in the initial contract, in the small print somewhere that is missed, it says, you agree to us changing the terms and agreements. Isn't it funny? These companies, like a mobile phone company or an energy company or a water board company or whoever it is, it's a one-sided document. It's like you either agree to this or we don't give you the service. Well, if that's the case, everybody should just walk away and say, hold on a second, I don't agree to some of this, so I'm not having any of it. But they have the monopoly, do they not, these mobile phone companies, that you either sign it or you don't get the service, which I think is reprehensible. I keep pressing the wrong button. Sorry about that. Meeting of the minds. A meeting of the minds, consensus ad idem, if I've got the Latin correct, occurs between the parties when they recognise each other, understand their mutual obligations, and agree. A meeting of the minds occurs between living men and women in lawful matters, that's the common law jurisdiction, and between the legal fiction actors in legal matters. A contract must be either lawful or legal. If one party to a contract makes a signature as an accommodation party to a legal fiction person, while the other makes an autograph for a living man or woman, the parties are of unequal kinds and the contract is null and void. And I suppose one way of getting out some of these contracts is not to sign as the legal signature, as the legal fiction, but to autograph. And let's have a look at this here. Autographs and signatures. Lawful contracts between living men and women must carry a wet ink autograph of the parties comprising of living identification, such as a thumbprint, but often living standing is recognised by an ambiguous declaration of the handwritten wet ink, and so on and so forth. But let's go to signatures. Signatures would be between the corporation versions. Privity of contract. A contract exists only between the parties. No third party can obtain rights contained within a contract or buy or sell a contract without the express permission of the original parties. So there we go. That is the sort of basic principles of a contract that everybody should be abiding by. Contract law, of course, is very high in the sort of legal, lawful matters. A contract, in the old days, my word was my bond. Now we do stuff on bits of paper. And those bits of paper should be done correctly. So it's fascinating to go back to that email that I had just now, and back here it is, where is they eventually, EDF they eventually stated they had an assumed contract that I was bound to. That doesn't sound right in my mind, and it may not sound right in your mind, seeing as we've looked at what the parts of a contract should be, and everybody should be able to be part of that contract and be full disclosure. So no one, in theory or in practice, should be able to have an assumed contract. Otherwise, we could just go around having assumed contracts with whomever we damn well like, and then say, oh, no, I'm sorry, I've got an assumed contract with you, and you're bound to it. What do you think? Be interested to see your comments. Thanks so much for watching.